Hello and welcome back to Think Ahead, a place for you to learn and be inspired by the latest in EdTech innovation within higher and further education. I'm Max Oliver, the Event Director of Ahead by Bett. Since filming our last episode, we hosted Ahead by Bett 2023 at the Excel in London, and it was an absolute pleasure to experience and meet so many of you in person. In this episode, we'll be taking a look at the most popular sessions from the event. There are over 50 to choose from, so it was tough to pick just 5. Before we dive in, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to everyone who attended for helping make this event a massive success. It was truly a global meeting place for the higher education and further education communities. Our biggest event yet, with over 4,200 educators, policymakers, and industry changemakers from 71 countries. We also welcomed over 75 edtechs in Ahead's dedicated hall, with more than 70 speakers in 50 content sessions. It truly was a game-changing event. My team and I are currently working hard on exciting plans for 2024, and I'm delighted to share we'll be back at the Excel on the 24th to 26th of January 2024 to do it all again. Most importantly, we're scaling Ahead by Bett to be even better. So watch this space. Today, we'll be looking at some of our favourite sessions from across Ahead by Bett 2023, including insights on AI, EDI, and Technophilosophy. First, we're taking a look at Microsoft's opening keynote on the auditorium. Higher education is facing historic changes, and leading institutions are adapting fast. In this session, Juliano Menegazzo explored how cloud, data, and AI are paving the way to create a higher education revolution. Let's take a look.
From a technology perspective, anyone here working in technology, I don't think we need to stress the point that the pace of change is still accelerating. That's the key word. This is something we live every day. Nothing new about that. And I have to say, we hear you. It's hard for us to keep up as well. So that's the first step, is just recognizing that. The second one, computing power, still increasing rapidly. And now we're talking about GPUs unlocking scenarios like generative AI. Third, I think this is the key one. It's not just that technology is changing and it's accelerating and computing power is higher than ever before, but the pace we adopt technology has accelerated as well. And the examples you see here, this is public information. So the time in months, how long a specific service or app took to reach 100 million users. So you see Google Translate to 78 months, ChatGPT. Anyone using ChatGPT here already? Okay, half, I guess. So 2 months reaching 100 million users. The pace of adoption, and this is very critical, leading us to the AI singularity. The numbers here, so AI singularity, when AI surpasses the human brain power individually and collectively. These numbers probably are wrong. This is from a Time magazine article in 2011. I've seen studies or recent research talking about it could happen within this decade, so nobody really knows. We only know it's coming, and it's coming fast. So industry trends, technology trends, now how we are having these discussions and what we see institutions doing trying to address some of those changes. First, I mentioned faculty, empowering faculty. Institutions are trying to find better ways to save them time. I mentioned that already. And what we did last year, mid-last year, we did some research asking faculty, how is that working for you kind of after the pandemic? It was right at the tail end of the pandemic. And basically, most faculty, they want to improve, they want to change the way they're teaching, they just don't know how to do it. Anyone who needs to learn more about generative AI? Yeah, me too. So that's a clear example of, we see this is a huge potential for higher education. Higher education can play a pivotal role helping employers, learners, and recruiters as well.
So I'm wondering if there is anything, any feature tool that can help us to identify ghostwriting or any other breach of academic conduct.
Oh, so in this case, I'm going to repeat that. Basically, is there any tool that can help educators identify ghostwriting? I've seen some options, but to be honest, I've seen students creating that kind of tool. I've seen companies doing that, but I think there was an announcement or a post from the OpenAI CEO a few weeks ago saying that, look, it's okay to do that, but it's going to be really hard to keep it working for too long. So I think what we are trying to do instead is seeing this as a teaching opportunity. So yes, students can use calculators, but they need a baseline to be able to use the calculator. They can use, let's say, ChatGPT to start something, but they need to have a baseline to do that. So I think the tendency we're seeing, the trend is more on how to deal with that instead of trying to block, because it seems like a lost cause right now to keep up and trying to build such a tool. But yes, many people have done that and they're no longer up to date. That has been the challenge there.
There are some great insights there from Juliano. And as suggested, the arrival of ChatGPT and the availability of AI has had a huge impact on the HE sector. However, contrary to popular belief, its best use is to not include writing essays. In this next clip, we hear from Dominik Lukes from the University of Oxford on how AI can be a time-saving device for busy academics and also how it can help students develop a better understanding of their subject. Let's take a look at what we can do with AI right now and also where it might go in the future.
Here are 5 things everybody should know about ChatGPT in about 15 minutes or so. Okay? I've come to these 5 things after quite a lot of talks I've given about this, and questions I've answered, and observations I've made about how people use and don't use ChatGPT and similar tools. So this is my best attempt at boiling down the important things that are useful, hopefully to educators as well as students to know. So here they are. So first, it has many building blocks. It's not just a single thing. Second, it does not reason. It predicts. It's a prediction machine. Third, it is limited by what's called a context window. It has a limited context it works in. It has no database, no copy and paste inside, no memory. It does not learn continuously, but you can instruct it to change its mind for a brief period of time. We often say ChatGPT sometimes hallucinates. That is wrong. ChatGPT always hallucinates. Every single thing it's doing is hallucinating. It just turns out so many of those hallucinations are useful and good. Right? That's the big step between GPT-4, 2, and 3. GPT-2 all had hallucinations. Most of them were ridiculous. These are very good and useful hallucinations, but they're always hallucinations. And that's the important thing, right? So, predicting next token, it gives us useful things. So that's so important. You know, it gets us those counting and so on, right? It gives us all of these useful things. It gives us poetry, tables, gives us computer code. It even sorts things up. So here's a useful task, right? You never think. So I have a list of emails, people RSVPing to a party. And I said, how many people are coming to my party from those emails? And it listed them. It gave me a number, listed them. And then it said whether they're coming or not. And I said, I don't trust you. Give me text of those things that people said. Remember, it's not copying and pasting, but at least it's so much easier for me to check. Right? So I'm using its own power to check its answer. That's why it's so useful. Right? But I never would have thought it can do something like that. So I have this was the table I had at the end. By the way, those were not real RSVPs. I also asked to generate those RSVP emails. And I then tweaked them a little bit to be better for that task, right? Really good book came out 4 years ago now, so didn't know ChatGPT is coming. But it made this metaphor that I think is really useful. When we got computers first, what we got was cheap arithmetic. So what you're seeing right now, this PowerPoint, this speaking, everything that you're seeing here happening digitally is computers adding numbers, right? It's arithmetic, pure and simple. What AI gives us is cheap prediction. And we just saw what prediction gives us, right? We never knew that there's people alive now who can say my grandmother was a computer, because this is what computer meant in 1940s, right? This was a computer room. People sitting in a room adding up numbers. That's what people used to be called computers. There are people whose job it was and title was, I am a computer at a corporation, right? We never knew if we replace them with much faster, much cheaper machines, we'll get PowerPoint. And the same goes with with AI prediction, cheap prediction. We never knew we'd get ChatGPT that can do all of these stuff, all these sort of useful things. 5 years ago, Google said this was a major achievement, being able to find out things that are more relevant. Now, Bing can do much better predictions, right? So all these predictions are so important. Oh, by the way, you can ask it, has no common sense, I mentioned, no idea of spatial relations. So I ask it to create SVG images, which is code for images, of a bicycle. This is what it thinks like a bicycle looks like. This is what it thought a bicycle looks like the second time. I ask it to get one more go. And when we got to GPT-4, this is as good as it gets. This is like the latest result. Okay. I ask it generate dialogues between a customer and a taxi driver in Czech. 2 times out of 10, it had the taxi driver asking how much the fare is of the customer, right? So it doesn't have really a good sense of common sense. Nevertheless, as a teacher, I would have, when I'm teaching a language, those dialogues are so hard to generate. It's so much easier to just fix those little tweaks and go from there.
Thanks to Dominik. Some great insight there. Dominik's session was the final session on Friday afternoon, and I've never seen our sandbox stage so full. It had a capacity for 40 people, and there were well over 200 there, truly solidifying to us that AI is the topic everyone wants more of. Our next session will explore equality, diversity, and inclusion in higher education. Dilshad Sheikh and Ahmed from Arden University are both from widening participation backgrounds and spoke about their own experiences in breaking barriers and glass ceilings. Let's watch back a clip to find out more about the impact of organisational culture and the drivers of change.
We thought long and hard what useful tips we could give you. So what I'm going to do is just take you through, and Nav will continue, some of the things that we've done at Arden to try and make Arden University more inclusive. I think the first one really is the admissions processes. And one of the things I want to talk about here is we have non-traditional students. And what I mean by that, some of the mature students that come to Arden don't necessarily have GCSEs or A-levels or BTECs, but what they do have is professional work experience. So what we tend to do, we very much understand that if you're in your 40s or 50s, it will have been a long time that you haven't studied. So we've got pathways. And what I mean by that, at Arden University, we've introduced a foundation year. So let's just say you've got a student that wants to do business management, but again, it's that imposter syndrome because I've come from, English isn't my native language, I've come from abroad, I've just settled here. So what we do is we put the student on a foundation year whereby we deliver academic support, academic skills, IT, so that they feel confident when they're progressing onto the BA program. The other thing that we've done as well in terms of non-traditional students is, as I said, for Arden, we're not like other universities where you have to do a test or a personal statement as such, because again, for someone that's been progressing their career or for someone that went straight into retail after school or after college, what we tend to do is interview students, and as long as you've got the ambition, then what we tend to do is admit you onto the program. But that doesn't mean you're not supported. So I think one of the important things that we do at Arden University, and in fact I was involved in a panel discussion yesterday about how we can make HE, higher education, more accessible. Got a question there. How well do the entry requirements portfolio of programs, are they aligned to the students? So again, I'll go back to my previous example where, quite frankly, the students that come to Arden, and we do have an interesting recruitment model as well. Unlike traditional universities, we don't use UCAS, we use agents, and we have direct recruitment and agent recruitment. So in the UK, we've probably got in the region of 600 to 700 agents. So again, as a university, it very much is more for mature learners and to give students the opportunity for that lifelong learning. In terms of barriers that we've identified, as I just mentioned, it's where, again, I've published various articles about this. It's as soon as a university decides to have a test, an entry test or an intellect test, you're not being inclusive because you're isolating the students that come from a very different background. But at Arden, we take each application as an individual application, and we will give the student the opportunity to join the program that they're obviously interested in. But I think what's really working for us is the foundation year. So currently, and Nav works in the Institute of Foundation Studies, we've probably got about 6,500 foundation year students who didn't have the opportunity to study when they left school. It may well be that they're carers, it may well be that they've got families, and it's really interesting how big the market demand is for mature learners to come back to study. So that's a little bit about admissions and what we do at Arden. I created an excellence framework in inclusivity. So it is standard practice for some universities, but I got the key stakeholders together, notably the students, professional bodies, alumni, and what we've developed at Arden is, as I've put there, an inclusive and diverse framework. So what does that mean? What it means is that all of our programs at Arden are audited against this framework. So it's a guidance that stipulates assessment, for example. Is it diverse? Is it inclusive? Are you continuing to use Western companies, Google, Microsoft? Why aren't you using the small entrepreneur and the Caribbean hair shop on the corner? And what the students told us in a focus group that we had, and it was really interesting, they said, Dilshad, I can't see myself in the curriculum. And for that reason, it's really challenging for me to connect with the study that I'm doing. And I've had experience of that. So what we've done at Arden, as I mentioned, categorically when we're designing new products or new programs, we consult with students as partners and we make sure that the learning, teaching and assessment strategy is inclusive and diverse. One of the things I've introduced in my faculty is authentic assessment. Now, there's two reasons for that. The first reason, trying to make sure that the assessment connects and resonates with the students. And the second one, I'm sure you're all aware, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. So when you ask a student, can you do a podcast? Can you do a role play? And I think the other thing to mention as well, for Arden and the execs, it's really important that we equip students with the knowledge and expertise that they're going to use in the workplace. So essentially with ChatGPT, at the moment we're still thinking what we want to do with artificial intelligence, but as far as the assessment's concerned at Arden, it is very authentic. So rather than using a pre-formulated case study, we bring in live clients, they present a problem. So one of the clients that we're working with at the moment is an advertising agency with the digital marketing students, and the client presents a problem. You can't go and find the answers on artificial intelligence, and then the students present back. So this framework has actually narrowed our attainment gap by 8% so far. So just by thinking about how to make the curriculum inclusive, how to make it diverse from the onset, we've done the review, we've evaluated the last 18 months, and what we found is that our ethnic minority students are beginning to perform a bit better.
I think what some people say is the challenge is, how do I try to do all of this all at once? And I think, to be honest, that's where a lot of people go wrong. It's trying to do a single assessment that tries to encapsulate everybody. It's going to cover somebody with a disability, somebody from a different background, somebody with a different nationality. But sometimes I feel we miss a trick by doing that, because what we're trying to do is perhaps to see if those things are working, is to pilot those at smaller stages. So you've tried something because you've identified through your data, and that's got to be your starting point. Your data shows you that black students are less likely to pass or to complete perhaps than white students. So what pilot project are you going to use to target a particular demographic? If we've seen that that's having effect, so what we do at Arden is we have multiple study centres. We'll trial something at Manchester and then roll that out across Leeds, across Birmingham, because I mean, I've come from an FE background, and one of the things that's always struck me is this one-size-fits-all approach to delivering the same lecture to everybody and assuming everyone's going to get it. So looking at within that, where are your differences that people can relate to and really understand? So building in those examples through that work. Whole organisational approach to EDI, it can't happen with just one person like myself or one person like Dilshad. It needs all of us, okay? Everyone at every level of your organisation. And I'm sure you'll have seen this yourself. Someone's come out with a great initiative for International Women's Day, for Black History Month, you know, for Ramadan. but then the rest of the year it goes quiet. So for me, I would much rather have, rather than one big event once a year, I would much rather have small, consistent actions that are happening every day to try and make those improvements. And that, I think, will go a long way.
Thanks to Dilshad and Nav. Dilshad is our newest member on the Ahead by Bett advisory board, so I'm excited to be working more closely with her this year. Assessment has always been high on the agenda at Ahead by Bett, and this year was no different. We heard from Dr. Ovidiu Bagdasar, Associate Professor at the University of Derby, who is deeply invested in designing formative assessment interventions that help support and develop student confidence, which has led to an improvement in the university's student retention rates. Let's explore how you can use digital assessment solutions to reduce student dropout rates in your university.
What makes us very special is we are very student-centered. We work directly with employers and we try to embed our research into the teaching. But also our entry criteria are not as high as for many other universities. And this means that often, so we have to really add value to the student experience. We have students coming with low entry tariff points, and then we have to take them where they should be in order to get a good job once they graduate. And this is where my experience with digital assessment started. I had to teach a class of 150 students in computing, many of them coming through non-traditional education backgrounds, and I had to teach them all. I had to help them all understand the mathematics they needed for their computing degree. NSS course, these are critical for small universities like National Student Survey. This was like 40-50% satisfaction with the courses. And I had to teach like the basic maths, and then I wrote a textbook for that. I started to use recordings as soon as they were required. I started to embed some math jokes because I had to try to make students feel comfortable in my class. And then I also designed the full battery of e-assessment for the students based on the principles of assessment for learning, so that the students can actually learn through the assessment. And I started to collect feedback. So we are all about interacting with the students, taking them in a partnership, and starting from research in Canada, in the Ontario region. They looked at the results from Canadian colleges in Ontario, and there are 24 colleges, 40,000 students, and they've seen that a third of the students were in danger of failing their whole course because of their single math subject they had to take. And then they set up a company, they set up a product which won multiple awards, and this was called Elevate My Maths. And this had a very nice structure. So this was a self-study course with diagnostic assessment to see where the students were at that time, then upgrading modules which were interactive, showing the numbers in context, so this is numeracy for adults, and also more advanced concepts, and then also summative assessment to check mastery. This was covering basic maths for college students, fills gaps in prior knowledge, because what we often find in engineering students, many of them understand the concepts, but they struggle with some simple things in calculations, and this is what hinders their progress. And then you have the remediation problem, because in higher education you try to remedy gaps from secondary education, in secondary education you try to remedy gaps from primary education, and so on. So it's the snowball effect. And then also this was developed with assessment for learning. And I came in contact with Vreta at the British Congress of Mathematical Education in 2018, where I bumped into Graham, who told me that, hi, I'm Graham, and my dream is a world where everyone enjoys maths. I said, really? My name is Ovidiu, and I have exactly the same dream. So let's dream together. And the result of that was Graham's participation into the first workshop on current issues in mathematical education. And then we took two off-the-shelf products from Elevate My Maths, and I thought I can deploy these courses into my own classroom for computational mathematics students. I chose exactly the resource my students needed, and I put the students through diagnostics, upgrading lessons, summative assessments, and so on. And I had access to 300 students in 5 modules. My module was taught in Greece as well, so I could we embedded maths anxiety questionnaires as well, pre and post surveys, to see how effective would this intervention be. And what we found, much improved engagement, then improvement in performance. For math, I tried it also as a benchmark for math students as well in year one. So they didn't improve much because they were starting from a higher level. But the improvement was massive in computational mathematics and also even bigger in Greece, where they were also using this as a tool to learn English. And overall, the pass rate for the course went up from 85%, which was already quite good, to 89%. So I was now getting into the higher part, so close to 90s. I also had the idea to develop some badging, and then I started to get the feedback from the students. And I was very happy to see that I was helping exactly the students who needed most help and who would not raise their hands in their tutorials. And I had students coming back into education after 25 years breaks. I had students who were coming after 14 years breaks, taking different careers in the meantime, and also have inmates. I have a student who was only allowed to come to the university twice a week, and he told me, Ovidiu, please make your videos for the lectures available to download so that I can fire them on a DVD and put them in my cell. And now, in this way, we managed to make maths support one of the pillars of Developer Derby. This is the newly launched project of the university, aiming to support students across a whole range of skills, of which maths and numeracy are key. And we were able to support more than 70 modules so far, more than 3,000 students, and we awarded more than 700 badges. We were able to develop massive online open courses, also to support applicants to the university and to help the companies in the region. And of course, this informs, now we have lots of data, and this informs pedagogic research.
Thanks to Ovidiu for a brilliant session. It's great to see the direct impact of digital transformation there. In our final clip, we'll be hearing from Rens van der Vorst, a technophilosopher from Fontys University of Applied Sciences. In this session, Rens explores some of the key questions facing higher education today, including what is the real impact of educational technology? How does technology make things better? And how do I activate my teachers? This session certainly made me laugh out loud, so now it's your turn. Let's take a look.
So we had this typical small group of guys from Silicon Valley who solved their problems and totally changed the way we act and the way we interact. So thinking about what is technology is really important. And sometimes you hear people talk about digital transformation. My university also talks about digital transformation. And I always tell them, I think that's a bad idea. Because what is digital exactly? That's like a binary basis, 1 or 0. Right or wrong, black or white, left or right. And we people, we are great at grayscaling, at context, at exceptions. So we have to be careful with that. And you know, digital thinking is thinking that the world is a collection of problems we need to solve. But some problems are better embraced, I guess. And solving it is always being more efficient. But efficiency, it has no value in itself. And if it's more efficient, then engineers check with data. But if you think about data, I think the most valuable things in life are the hardest to measure. So we don't need digital transformation, we need educational transformation. We need human transformation by the right digital means. And that's something completely different. And that's, otherwise we will become like the American truck driver. You know, all life, the truck driver was afraid he would be replaced by a self-driving truck. That never happened. But nowadays, his cabin is filled with sensors and technology. Do you brake? Don't you brake too hard? Do you rest enough? Don't you drive too hard? There are even eye-tracking cameras in the cabin to check if the truck driver is looking at the road. So this truck driver, who took his job for the romance and the adventure, he never was replaced by a self-driving robot, but he became some kind of self-driving robot. So what I want to do is I try to have my students think about the impact of educational technology. So at Fontys we try not to talk about students, but with students. But if you talk with students, you need to talk with informed students. You need to educate them to think about technology. And some ways we do that is, first of all, we create all kinds of projects in which we have our students create solutions for inhuman technology. This is an example of inhuman technology, the CAPTCHA. You know the CAPTCHA? You know, or this one. And they're getting even more complicated, right? Yeah, I saw this one. Bishops who dissented from the Christological... That's a hard one. That's a real hard one. But if you think about this, you know, this is inhumane because I'm human. You are also all human, I guess, right? I even reproduced 2 times already. And now I have to prove to a robot that I'm not a robot by doing robot stuff. That's inhumane. So I understand that sometimes you have to prove something, but I want to prove that I'm human instead of not a robot. So we created a solution called the CAPTCHA, and that works like this.
CAPTCHA appeals to a deeply human quality, humour. CAPTCHA presents you with a joke, you find the right punchline, and prove that you are human in a fun, secure way.
The CAPTCHA is coming up. How do you drown a hipster? Throw them in the mainstream. It's really, really easy for humans. It's really, really hard for robots because you need have a lot of context to solve a thing like this. That is what we thought until December 8th. Then we got ChatGPT. So let's try it. Let's try it. This thing, understand it. Here we go. Damn. Damn. Yeah. So there is this a kind of race going on between human and technology, and asking yourself, what does it mean to be human? How to remain human in times of technology becomes more and more important.
Thanks to Rens and the rest of our speakers featured today. And that's a wrap. You can find more content from us on the Think Ahead Hub, where we'll continue to share interviews, news, and recorded sessions from our events. Check out our social media channels and subscribe to our newsletter for more information. For now, from all of us at Ahead by Bett, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.